Hello, everybody. My name is Herb Moyer, and I'm here interviewing and asking questions of the Democratic nominee for the Rockingham County position of Register of Deeds, Michael McCord. So, good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Herb. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, Michael, please tell the viewers a bit about yourself, where you live, education, history, family, your work background, etc.
Oh, it's a long tale, let me tell you. Well, I am, again, Michael McCord. I live here in Exeter, in this fine town. My wife, who's a jewelry artist by the name of Ann Dinan, and our cat Vito, we live here in Exeter. We've lived here for almost 9 years, 9+ years now, and we love it here. My background, predominantly, I was born on the West Coast. I was born in the state of Washington, grew up actually in Las Vegas, Nevada, during the last days of when the mobs actually ran the casinos, so it was quite an interesting time to grow up there. And then I joined the Army. I was in the military intelligence branch. Not quite spy versus spy stuff, but quite a bit of interesting activities that I did. That had to do with essentially keeping, at that time, the Soviets and the Eastern Bloc countries from essentially recruiting spies in the West, especially recruiting spies, civilian and military personnel. At that time in West Germany, of course, we know West Germany doesn't exist anymore. And so if someone had told me in 1974 when I was in Europe that, the Berlin Wall would fall and the Cold War would be ended 15 years later, I would have thought that was just crazy talk, because it seemed like it was going to go on for a very, very long time. Right. So I came back. I was intent on heading back to the West Coast to go to school in California, and then I ended up here in New Hampshire, and that was 4+ decades ago, and I'm still here going strong. I have a varied background. I have been, as we talked earlier, I've been a photographer and a video producer is a small part of that, and mostly I've been a journalist. I covered my first presidential campaign in 1980 and I met some fascinating people, and I said, well, this is really good. And before that, I had done work for Stars and Stripes in Europe when I was in the Army. And finished my college at Keene State College. I studied history, and then I started my career, working different jobs, in and out of journalism and freelance writing. And then, 30+ years later, here I am. I was best known, I guess if you could say that, especially here in the Seacoast. I was the business, political, and editorial page editor of the Portsmouth Herald at the end of the last decade, from 2005 to 2009. And got to obviously meet a lot of presidential candidates, got a lot of feedback from readers, because I was also a columnist. But most of all, I was interested, and I internalized a dedication of public service to a lot of the people I was interviewing. Everybody from my not friend, but he was a very close acquaintance, John McCain, who died a couple of years ago. I covered him twice in presidential campaigns, and including in his last one when he had actually been given up for political dead. And we're walking along, outside, on the sidewalks of the Peace Trade Port, because he had no staff with him. I'm carrying one suitcase and he's dragging another one. And I met a lot of people like that. Interviewed voters in Iowa when I was covering the Iowa caucuses. What I want to bring to this is that a lot of the people that I met over the years, whether it be Jean Shaheen when I first covered her when she was governor, Maggie Hassan, John McCain, Barack Obama, Terry Norelli, who's the former New Hampshire Speaker of the House, they ended up inspiring me far more than I thought possible. It's very easy as a journalist to become just a tad bit cynical and jaded, and I was actually inspired by their dedication to public service. It's very easy these days to give it short shrift.
Sure.
That all politicians are corrupt, that it doesn't really, nothing matters, facts don't matter. Actually, they do. They do a lot. So the last couple of years, as I reached my, as of now, I'm a first-time candidate at the tender young age of 65. I had some shifts in my life. I wanted to do, as a lot of people going through this tumultuous era right now, I wanted to give back more. So I got involved more in volunteering, and I'm blessed to be a board member for an incredible organization that helps adults with different abilities, with autism, Down syndrome.
What's the name of the organization?
Farmsteads of New England. I don't know if you've heard of them. They have a farm, literally, in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, and they have a day services location in Epping, nearby here in Epping. Okay. And one of the things they do, and we call them our farmers, because they live on the farm. Mm-hmm. And so they learn, they get to have a fulfilled life. They live on the farm, they have friends, they work to what their abilities can give them. And I've been very lucky to be part of that board for the past couple of years. And it has added some perspective ballast to my life for sure. And then earlier this year, actually in June, the Rockingham County Democrats asked me if I would be interested in running for Register of Deeds, and I said, Register of Deeds? I didn't really know a lot about it, and then I thought, well, why not? And so, you know, here I am today. I thought a lot about it. I did some research, and as a journalist, you never stop doing research, never stop learning, yeah. And so that's where I am today. I've won a lot of awards for my writing. I'm also an author of 2 political satires that were way ahead of their time, from what I've been told. And I've been very lucky. So I want to give back that spirit of public service.
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. Just to pigtail off your Army intelligence experience, I had a friend who was in, I think it was the Army intelligence, and his job was to monitor, he spoke Russian, was to monitor the transactions and the communications between the Russian pilots and the home base. And he reminded me, he told me of a story where one Russian pilot had an engine, single engine plane, had an engine flame out, and he was requesting permission to bail out, and the reply was "niet." So
I suspect he was in the Army Security Agency.
It could well be.
Because they were the ones that did, and I was part of that as well. I was in that same agency. Okay. And which was an offshoot of the National Security Agency.
Oh, cool. So what's your understanding of the functions of the Register of Deeds in this county?
Well, I did, as I said, I did my due diligence and my homework, and I have found out that it goes all the way back to 1784 in the original New Hampshire Constitution, mm-hmm. where it's mentioned, the office. And not only that, but it's supposed to be an elected office, which means it's an office of public trust, right. Obviously. So it is the office that is the central, I want to say warehouse, for lack of a better term, of all the property records in Rockingham County. And we're talking about going back 3+ centuries. Right. And why that's important? Well, just think about what our whole system of capitalism is based on. Confidence, but also who owns what and who owns what property. And do they own that property legally? And so it is the office that essentially it does filing for all the property modifications, sales, whether it's the liens, whether a new mortgage holder owns the property or not. It's a place, obviously, where the title search people do their due diligence to find out who owns property. So a lot of people don't know what it is because they may not have a lot of citizens in the county, may not have direct contact with the office because lawyers, developers, title researchers and experts, they're the ones that have quite a bit of dealing with the office. But it's very important in terms of when they come in that door that you do the right thing. that records are maintained efficiently and properly. And so what I would call an obscure office, and it certainly is, because if you look at your absentee ballot or the ballot you're going to vote on November 3rd, you'll see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at the top, and then you keep going all the way down almost near the bottom, and there I am, right. Michael McCord for Register of Deeds. So it is obviously a partisan position to get elected to, but not so much the case is that, you know, if you are chosen. So the job itself is managerial, administrative, and I don't know how many people are in there right now. I think it's a staff of between 8 and 10, mm-hmm. and they are the ones that essentially, you know, are the keeper of not the secrets, but you know, the keeper of the records. Which, when you think about it, goes all the way back to, you know, Robin Hood days, you know, in England. So it's very important. I just dropped my microphone, so let me just grab that. There we go. So yeah, and so it has a budget of about last one I saw, and this is a rough estimate, 1.3 million. But I'm sure you figured out already that its most important value is that it brings in cash for the county, right. Almost $6 million. Oh,
wow.
Which is important because the county budget around 86 million, 50 million of that is property taxes in Rockingham County that folks pay as part of their town property tax. And so when you think about revenues of, net revenues of maybe 4.8 to 5 million of the remaining $35 million in the county budget, that's pretty important.
Absolutely, yeah. On your website, you mentioned how nonpartisan you would be as a Register of Deeds, and I think all of us voters would hope that any county employee would not reflect either positively or negatively on members of either political party as they conduct their business in and with the county. Did you mention that for a particular reason?
Yeah, I did actually, Herb. It's not that I'm not accusing anybody of that, but I think that what has happened, especially, you know, one of the reasons that I wrote my satires is because over the past 4 decades, we have seen a denigration of the whole idea of public service.
Yeah, absolutely. And
the whole idea of good governance. And so the assumption is, well, both sides are corrupt. Right. Both sides are crooked. And, you know, I reject that premise, not only because I'm a proud Democrat, but also because that type of cynicism, it fosters corruption. Yeah. And it fosters a lack of confidence. I mean, you don't have to look very far to know that people are having, especially in the middle of this pandemic, people are having less and less confidence in our institutions that are there to allegedly protect us. Right. And so I would say that you may not think that what's happening in Washington, D.C., and with the almost overwhelming corruption of the Trump administration, where it's becoming systematic and baked into the system, I would say you'd be foolish to believe that does not have an impact right. on things all the way down. I believe in good governance. It can be contagious. It does matter, and especially if we've learned anything about in this pandemic, is that how vital it is that we have trust. Competence matters.
Absolutely.
And so I put that in there, not because I believe my opponent does that. I believe because I think people essentially need to be re-engaged and say, good governance matters. And let me tell you why it matters. Right. Because it's your tax dollars, it impacts you on so many levels. So I put that in there to say, we can be partisan in our elections, but we can just be so dedicated to good governance and competence in our duties. And you know what? It can spread.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I've never forgotten the quote that I read attributed to Adlai Stevenson, who ran in opposition to Eisenhower back in the 50s. His comment was, bad politicians are elected by people who don't vote. Mm-hmm. So I've always remembered that, and anytime I stop in one of the gas and go types places, typically there's a woman, not always, but a woman at the cashier, and I always ask them if they're registered to vote. And probably 8 times out of 10, they're not even registered to vote. So I give them my little spiel and how important it is. You know, do you have kids? Do you plan to have kids? You know, this has an impact on their future life. So yeah, I'm with you with that philosophy. That's great. Michael, what personal or professional attributes do you feel you have that make you well suited for this job?
As I mentioned earlier, Herb, this is a managerial job.
Right.
It is an administrative job. And so I have worked in capacities, not like this. I've never had an office with a budget of $1.2 million. But I have overseen reporters. I have overseen employees, you know, at the college level. You know, I ran the Veterans Affairs office at Keene State College, and you know, had employees, and we had to really be able to dot our I's and cross our T's for our veterans to be able to get their benefits and stuff like that. But I think most of all, you know, I have really strong leadership skills that go all the way back, you know, maybe when I was in high school, you know, playing athletics, but also when I was in the Army. I mean, I was given a tremendous amount of responsibility at 20 years old for a 4-month, you know, phase because of rotations and shifting priorities. I was in charge of a department that had almost $1 million budget, and that I had to do the budget for, which at 20 I had no clue what I was doing, but I muddled through. You know, I had 7 people under me, 20 years old. And I found out that I could kind of do it, or at least I could give the illusion of doing it. But that's carried on to a lot of things that I do, especially, you know, in journalism and trying to set a tone. And so I bring what I believe are strong leadership skills, good managerial skills, and you know, 40 years of being a journalist or involved in journalism, you learn to pay attention to detail and do your homework. And if you're going to be good at it, which I believe that I was good at it, that matters. Right. So, and thinking about the future, you know, thinking about the questions that haven't been asked yet. You know, I think that when you and I communicated, you know, we talked briefly, you know, about that. What questions aren't being asked? Yeah. What things aren't being looked into? And I think that as a journalist, I was taught how to ask, how to think that way. And I know I would bring the same thing in, you know, if I was to be the steward at the registry. Excellent, excellent.
There are 37 cities or towns in Rockingham County. How do you plan to campaign throughout such a large geographic area? Do you have 37 friends that can stand outside the polling places?
I'm working at
holding signs? Or what's your strategy?
Well, Rockingham County is very big. One of the things that I found out, Ann and I took a drive. I dropped off campaign signs, you know, at a couple places last Sunday we went. So I left Exeter, you know, hopped up on 125, cut across Nottingham, went all the way to Northwood, which is the northern part of Rockingham County. Yeah. And then we're going through all the back roads through Candia, Deerfield, and then to Auburn, yeah, which is like one of the northwestern parts of Rockingham County. And then we went further south into Derry, and then we started driving to Windham, which is in the western part of, and then we stopped finally in Salem to drop off a bunch of signs. So it's a big county. And of course, we're in the middle of a deadly pandemic, so everything, all the rules have just gone out the window. Yeah. I have been doing, I did not know that I could be good at Zooms, but I have learned how to become Zoom proficient, if nothing else, over the past 3 months. I'm meeting, because I can't do things like talk to Rotary clubs. You know, you can't do things like talk to, you know, just citizen groups. It's almost impossible. Right. So I'm talking to Democratic town committees all across the county. If I can't talk to them via Zoom, introduce myself, I'm communicating to them by email or via Facebook, so a lot of social media. Right. And I am making friends. Amazingly, I'm I am humbled every day by people reaching out to me saying, how can I help you? And I think part of that is because Democrats are excited about the potential, because this would really be historical if a Democrat won a countywide seat. It has been a very long time.
Yeah.
But people are excited. They're excited that I'm actively campaigning, and you know, my signs are starting to pop up all over Rockingham County, and I'm planning not to do like a mailer. It's just not, I'm going to do a lot of digital advertising.
Oh, cool.
And then things like this. I was on the radio last week with Larry Drake in Portsmouth Community Radio, and with you today that we can share throughout Rockingham County. So that is how I'm getting the word out, and I'm having friends, Republicans and independents, that are popping up their signs and talking to their friends about me.
Oh, excellent.
So it's a new way of campaigning, to say the least.
I'm sure. I'm sure you don't know this, but I ran for that office in 2004.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and you know, Kathy Ann Stacy, who's the current Register of Deeds, is a formidable opponent for sure.
Oh,
but what I decided I would do, and you may not be able to do this now, I went to Derry, and I stood outside just meeting people, explaining who I was, and that hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, I did very well in Derry as a result of that personal contact. But again, you may not be able to do that in this particular time.
Well, I'm also planning to do the old school visibilities.
Right, right.
Socially masked and socially distanced, mind you.
Yeah.
I'm planning to do at least 15 to 20 of those in the final
Great.
final month. So I'm setting those up.
Excellent. What initiatives or programs would you undertake or implement in the Register of Deeds office? You have some plans for what needs to be done or what you think might be useful and valuable?
Well, obviously, because of the importance of record keeping there, I believe that I would like to see a thorough technology audit, not only for the software that's being used to help facilitate access to the records, to help store them, to help protect them, to help secure them, but also for the technology of the entire office and how efficient it is and stuff like that. I have looked over the budget the last 4 or 5 years. I've seen expenditures for software, but I haven't seen anything for an audit. And one of the things that I'm focused on is that, and it's connected to this, I'm term limiting myself. I'm not going to make this a second career. If the voters of Rockingham County have faith in me, I'm going to make this a 2-term, 4 years endeavor, and I'm going to be so focused on reform and modernization of that office, not only for 2022, but what about 2030? What about, you know, what are you going to do to have this office ready for the next decade?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to be focused on. So if I would be blessed to have 2 terms, I would step aside and leave the office in a much better place than I found it.
Excellent.
And that's my really focus. So I'm not going to spend time, for example, excessive lobbying in Concord or anything like that, because no. And not only that, but I want to have all the my potential colleagues in the office. I want them trained. So for them to succeed every hour of every day.
Yeah, cool.
Now, I'm not saying that isn't happening. I'm just saying is that I want to take a second look at it. After somebody who's been in as long as office as Kathy has, it's easy to fall prey to atrophy. You just assume.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to make any assumptions.
Cool. Have you taken an opportunity to visit the office and/or meet with some of the employees?
I have seen the office before, but I don't think it's appropriate to really talk to the employees.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you saw the story about the Exeter resident who was fired.
I did.
And so I think that speaks volumes about maybe Kathy Stacy's priorities. They are not mine. One of the things that, as I said, I believe that competence matters. I believe that good governance matters. And I also believe that leadership matters. And I thought in that firing of a valued employee who is staying home in the middle of a deadly pandemic to take care of a vulnerable, brother-in-law with Down syndrome was appalling.
Right.
I mean, there's just no other way around it. And it was appalling not just on the human level, but one of the newspaper articles, I did it again, one of the newspaper articles quoted her as saying that, she'd been frustrated and overwrought earlier in the year because, so many of her employees had to go on unpaid leave because of the pandemic. And I looked at that quote and I thought, well, that's bizarre. Are you planning for a potential second shutdown? And if you are, why are you firing one of your valued employees over something that may solve itself in the next 2 months anyway? If her brother-in-law can go back to adult day services. It showed me a lack of leadership, a lack of critical thinking, a lack of creative thinking, and just if you want to sap the morale of an office, there is no easier way to do that than to have almost something cruel done to an employee. We all have, these are difficult times with difficult choices. I can think of about 15 different ways I think could have been handled to the betterment of the office. So no, I haven't. I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk to employees. But I would just say to them is that I'm going to do everything I can to help to make them succeed.
Excellent, excellent. What do you most want voters to know about you and that would be important in their decision to either vote for you or to vote for your opponent?
Well, I hope they give me a good consideration, that's for sure. I want them to know, and I may be a little bit repetitive here, but I believe in public service, and I believe that I will be an exemplary public servant, and who's going to build up public trust in the office, and I think that is a value all in itself. I know I can do the job. I know that I will learn how to be even better at the job within the next 6 months to a year, because I have faith in my abilities. I have a pretty steep learning curve, and I have a voracious curiosity that kind of propels me forward, to be successful. And but most of all, I believe in competence. I believe in serving the public as best as you can and finding ways to find even better ways to serve the public. And I don't want that to be mumbo jumbo, but I just believe in it because it really does matter. Again, as I said, if you're not planning for what's coming, especially in the next 3 to 5 years, because we have no idea what this pandemic is going to bring, you need somebody in there who can think fast on their feet and can handle pressure. Mm-hmm. And I believe that I'm that person. I've got a very good temperament, and I like to work hard, and especially when I meet a challenge, I really enjoy it.
Michael, is there anything else you'd like to share with viewers before we wrap up?
Oh my God. Well, I think the most important thing right now is that you go to my one-page website and you can learn more about me and some of the things that Herb and I didn't talk about. It's McCord, MCCORD, NHcandidate.com. I kind of give folks kind of an abridged look at my journalistic career and some of the adventures I had, including meeting voters in Iowa and talking to Carole King, the singer, and an incredible interview I had with Marilyn, one of the last interviews with Marilyn Monroe's first husband. And so that's been part of my career. And plus you can also see a picture of me with Barack Obama on the campaign trail. So I would recommend that. Find out a little bit more about me. You can reach out and contact me. Ask me any questions you want, comments, etc.
This has been fascinating, Michael. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and good luck.
Well, thank you very much, Herb, and I greatly appreciate you taking some time out to talk to me.
My pleasure.